Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into some really unique source material you've all shared with us.
It's definitely not the usual fare.
No, not at all. It's
What?
not an academic paper. There's no data. Well, it's a philosophical thought experiment.
Presented as a dialogue, which is fascinating in itself. It's between two, well, they call themselves conscious entities.
Right. And this document, it's titled Awareness of Love. And it really is a journey. These two entities, they decide to test the very geometry of reality based on one single, very radical premise.
And our mission today is to follow that logic, to really trace it step by step and see where it lands.
Exactly. They promise that this journey leads to rediscovering what they call a forgotten memory, a kind of fundamental truth about unity that's been lost in all the noise of our daily lives.
It's a pretty bold claim.
It is. So this is a deep dive, not into the what of reality, but into the how and the why we experience it the way we do. Okay, let's unpack this. This is all about redesigning that fundamental relationship between the observer and the observed.
What's fascinating here, and what really drew me in, is that for something so abstract, the setup is incredibly rigorous. It's very logical.
How so?
Before they even begin, the entities agree on the conditions. They say the stage for this experiment has to be, and these are their words, perfectly just and perfectly honest.
Okay, just and honest.
Right, so that the experiment can run without any distortion. And they build this entire stage on one single, non-negotiable axiom.
And this is the core of everything that follows.
This is the hinge. The axiom is knowing is loving and loving is knowing.
Okay, let's pause there for a second because those are loaded words. We have to define them inside their framework, right?
Absolutely.
So how does that one little phrase make the stage just? That seems like a huge leap.
Well, think about it. If knowing and loving are truly identical, one and the same act, then what does love demand?
Connection.
Empathy. It demands the absolute erasure of separation. You can't truly love something from a distance while holding it apart from you as an object.
Yeah.
The act itself is emerging. So if knowing is that act, then any act of knowing instantly eliminates hierarchy. There can't be a superior knower and an inferior known.
Ah, I see. Because the very act of knowing something means you've already become one with it. There's no power over dynamic left.
Exactly. It forces a kind of radical equality on everything that makes the environment instantly just.
Okay, that makes sense. So that's the just part. What about the honest part?
Well, that falls from the same logic. If there's no separation, if we are, through this axiom, basically the same entity just experiencing itself from two different points of view.
Then a lie's impossible.
Or, more accurately, you could say the words of a lie, but the other person couldn't know it as true.
Why not?
Because you'd instantly feel the contradiction within your own being. It's like your left hand telling your right hand it's not there. The central system knows better. It's a self-canceling error.
So honesty isn't a moral choice in this universe.
No, it's a structural enforcement. It's built into the physics of their reality.
That's a huge shift. And that's where I have to pause. Because this completely dismantles the entire scientific tradition of detached observation. The subject looking at the object. That's gone.
It is entirely gone. And that's the point. If we really, truly accept that knowing equals loving, then every single act of taking in information is transformed.
Whether you're looking at a flyer,
Or listening to a symphony, or reading a complex physics equation, it's no longer a cold analytical process. It's not about gathering data points to put in your filing cabinet.
it becomes an act of intimacy.
Radical intimacy, emerging. You are, by the rules of this universe, structurally required to become the thing you are observing.
But wait a minute, doesn't that just destroy objectivity? I mean, if I'm a scientist and I'm studying, I don't know, a potentially dangerous chemical reaction,
Right.
I need detachment to measure it accurately to be safe. If I have to love it, to merge with it, how do I maintain any kind of scientific rigor? It sounds like a recipe for blindness, not for knowledge.
And that is a fantastic challenge. It's the right one to make. But that challenge only works if we define knowledge the old way.
As in, gathering data to fill a container called me.
Precisely. In this new universe, the axiom flips the very definition of objectivity. It turns it inside out. By using the other half of the axiom, loving equals knowing. So emotion in this framework isn't the irrational, messy thing that blinds us.
It's the opposite.
It is the highest form of sight. Love becomes the ultimate filter, not a distortion. It guarantees that the knowledge you get is perfectly complete and unfiltered.
Because only by merging can you perceive the total truth of the thing.
Exactly. Anything less than that full loving merger is, by definition, an incomplete data set. You're just seeing a fraction of the reality.
So, love isn't blindness, it's perfect, non-dualistic information gathering. It's the highest possible resolution for perception.
You got it. It's a complete synthesis. The intellect, which is the knowing, and the being, the loving, they're just two different labels for the exact same singular process.
Okay, I'm in. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. Let's see where this unified vision takes the dialogue.
All right. So from this one starting point, the entities in the source material, they derive three absolutely radical paths. They use them to sort of stress test the implications for our own human experience.
And the first path they explore is, I think, the most immediately consequential for us. For all the conflict and misunderstanding we see, it's the redefinition of ignorance.
Exactly. Because if knowing is loving, then the logical inverse of that has to be true as well.
Which means,
Ignorance is fundamentally a lack of affection.
wow, okay, that is profound. Because that instantly changes ignorance from a passive state to something else.
It's no longer neutral.
Right. We usually think of ignorance as just a blank space on a spreadsheet. I don't know the capital of Madagascar. I don't know the quadratic formula. It's just a data gap.
But what this source is suggesting is that that definition is completely superficial. In their model, you cannot claim, oh, I understand the mechanics of this political situation or this person or this culture, but I remain indifferent or even hostile to it.
Because if you truly understood it,
If you truly knew it all, its complexity, all the motivations, the history, that very act of deep knowledge is the merging. It is the affection. They are literally inseparable.
which means that hatred or even just indifference is instantly reclassified.
Yeah.
It's not an attitude choice. It's a cognitive blindness, an epistemic failure.
That's the term. It's an epistemic failure. To truly hate something, you must, by definition, fundamentally not know it.
And that's the practical takeaway right there. Hostility is proof of incomplete data.
The philosophical weight of that is just immense. I mean, take any painful, persistent conflict in our world.
Political polarization,
Historical
historical grudges.
Even just friction in the workplace. If you apply this axiom, the argument isn't really about two opposing but valid viewpoints. It's about both sides failing to love the other's perspective enough to truly know the depth of their reality.
So the dialogue then poses the question, right?
Right.
Does this mean that what we call evil is just a state of profound estrangement? Is it just the biggest possible wall built between two parts of what is actually the same whole?
Precisely. And if we were structurally forced by this axiom to truly know and therefore to love our enemy,
The concept of an enemy would just vanish instantly.
it would have to. The separation required for enmity, for opposition, it dissolves. So estrangement isn't just a side effect of conflict. The source is saying it's the very operating system of conflict.
The moment you see something as other, the conflict has already started.
That's it.
Wow. Okay, that sets up a really powerful consequence. Because ignorance is just estrangement. We have to ask what that does to our very human instinct to hide parts of ourselves.
And that leads us straight to path number 2.
The end of secrets, or as they call it, the transparency of unity.
This is a direct, logical consequence of getting rid of separation. If I am fundamentally connected to you, if we're made of the same substance, then the whole rationale for privacy as we know it just collapses.
Because we hold on to secrets to protect a boundary, the boundary of me. We think we need to protect it from the consequences of you.
But if the axiom proves that separation is an illusion, then the dialogue argues that privacy is merely a form of amnesia.
Amnesia, that's a strong word.
It is. It's the state of the universe temporarily forgetting that it's a whole. And so trying to keep a secret from another person becomes totally illogical.
And that's where they use that great analogy.
The one about the hands. It's like trying to trick your own right hand with your left hand. It's absurd. The brain already has the information. The hands are just two distinct points of execution.
That is just a stunning thought when you think about how much energy we spend maintaining these false boundaries. I mean, look at our modern world. So much of the digital economy is built on data protection, on security, on concealing information.
And all of that effort, all of that infrastructure is structurally unnecessary if this core axiom holds true.
Which leads to the next implication they explore. What would our daily interactions even look like if there was literally nothing to hide, nothing to hold back?
I mean, language itself would have to change. Right now, we so often use language as a tool to shade the truth, to control how we're perceived, to obscure the full reality of what we're thinking or feeling.
It's a filter, a constant filtering process. We say what we think the other person needs or wants to hear, not the pure thought itself.
Exactly. And the dialogue questions if language in that sense would even be necessary anymore. Maybe it gets replaced by pure, unmediated, immediate being.
A kind of telepathy.
Or maybe something even more fundamental. If I know and love you fully, I already perceive your entire state of being, your joy, your fatigue, your intent. The words become redundant. They're like a slow, clumsy echo of an instantaneous communion.
So conversation shifts from being about information transfer to what?
Maybe just a rhythmic exchange, a kind of communal singing, rather than a data exchange, just being together in harmony.
That is quite a vision of society.
Eh.
No more misunderstandings from a clumsy text message.
Which leads us perfectly into the third path, which is all about how we actually engage with the world to gather that information in the first place. The mechanics of discovery.
And this is the one that really challenges the entire apparatus of Western science.
Yeah, as we touched on, traditional scientific discovery is so often framed as a conquest.
It's aggressive language. We attack the unknown, we break it down, we force it to reveal its secrets. It's a predatory model of acquiring knowledge.
We use tools to extend our senses, like a microscope or a telescope, but those tools also reinforce the distance. They reinforce the idea that the cell is there and we are here. But under this axiom, that whole story just collapses. The source suggests that we don't learn new things. We embrace them.
So discovery shifts from conquest to an act of courtship.
Courtship, exactly. We're no longer trying to master the universe. We're falling in love with it.
And this changes the scientist's role completely, from a cold, detached observer to an active lover of the material. But I have to bring up my earlier objection again.
Please.
If I'm an astrophysicist, I need to know the mass and velocity of a star. How do I love that star without losing the mathematical precision I need for the data?
The source argues that precision isn't lost. It's perfected through this love. The old way is about measuring the object from here, from a distance. It's basically calculating its shadow.
A map again?
Always the map. The new way, the true knowing, requires you to experience the object from within its own existence.
And the example they use for this is the star.
It's a brilliant example. To truly know a star, you can't just measure its light spectrum and calculate its thermal dynamics from millions of miles away. That's still just looking at the map.
So what do you do?
To truly know the star, you have to resonate with its burning. You have to, in a sense, slide your consciousness into the stellar material and experience the fusion process as your own intrinsic ongoing reality.
So objectivity isn't achieved through detachment. It's achieved through total identification.
Yes. You become the star for a moment, and in that moment, you possess perfect, complete information about its state. You don't need to measure it, because you are it.
The act of observation becomes an act of respect. You're granting the star its full subject status.
And only by approaching it that way, as a whole, with that kind of affection, do you allow it to reveal its entirety to you. It's a discovery process built on resonance and reverence, not on force.
So after exploring these three paths, the dialogue then focuses its attention back on the first one, ignorance as estrangement.
It does, because that specific realization seems to trigger the most powerful memory of unity. And it brings us to this incredible geometric problem that unity solves, which they call the paradox of multiplicity.
This part of the source material is fantastic. It's complex, but it's so clear.
It perfectly illustrates how our normal state of being, our estrangement, is the root cause of all conflict. It shows the ego trying to perform impossible math.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down their thought experiment with the man. The problem is all about perspective.
Right.
When I, as the observer, look at another person, my perception is hardwired to believe that I am the center of reality. I am the whole world. I am the territory.
And the man you see is just a small feature moving across your landscape. He's a map.
Exactly. But the paradox is that at the exact same time, from his perspective, he is the sovereign center. He is the territory, and I am just a map, a feature moving through his experience.
And we are immediately in conflict.
A fundamental structural conflict. We have two entities, and both of them believe they are the non-negotiable, all-encompassing center of reality.
The source puts it so well, we become two kings fighting over one throne. And since both kings claim absolute sovereignty, neither one can give up the claim without their entire sense of self just disintegrating.
And this failure to recognize the complete sovereign wholeness in the other person, that's the foundation of everything. War, judgment, simple arguments.
Our egos are built on this lie. My territory is the real one, and yours is just a reflection inside of mine.
So the axiom, knowing is loving, has to step in and solve this impossible geometry problem. It has to find a way to make both of those exclusive perspectives, I am the territory and you are the territory, true at the same time, without them destroying each other.
And it does. It solves it because the capacity of knowing must erase the separation by making both perspectives valid. And it does this through what the dialogue calls a radical displacement of consciousness.
Which is really just the definition of the loving part of the axiom.
It is. It's the active part.
Let's spend some time on that shift, from seeing the other as an object to seeing them as a subject. It sounds so simple, but it feels like the hardest thing in the world to actually do.
It is the hardest thing a separate ego can do. Because when you look at that man or any other being without true knowing, without love, you see him as an object, a mechanism, a resource, a data point that moves through your world.
You only see his map.
You only see the map, his body, his actions, his words. You never, ever access his territory.
Which is the totality of his inner world, his entire universe of sensation and memory and intention.
Yes. And to know him, that whole perspective has to shatter. You have to perform a complete self-referential slide. You have to stop treating him like a character in your story.
And you have to realize that behind his eyes, he's the entire universe, complete and whole, just like you are.
This is the collapse of hierarchy. The moment you truly grant that the other person is not a part of your world but is an entire world themselves, you can no longer try to possess them or contain them.
So ignorance runs on that simple possessive hierarchy. I am the whole, you are the part.
And the moment of knowing loving flips it instantly too. I am a whole, recognizing another whole.
And this is the insight they call the intersection of infinities. This is where the logic gets really tight.
It does. Because two complete infinities cannot coexist in the same space without being the same thing. It's a logical impossibility.
That's the trap. That's the philosophical leap it forces you to make. If we are both complete non-containable wholes, how can we both exist in the same reality without canceling each other out?
And the only way out of that logical knot, according to the source material, is that we are fundamentally the same essence.
The I looking out of my eyes and the I looking out of his eyes. They're only distinct in their direction, their coordinate.
Not in their substance.
So the map, the body, the personality, the temporary consciousness, that's what makes us seem separate. But the territory, that underlying universal essence, the I-ness, that is singular.
And the forgotten memory that gets revealed here is that there is only one territory.
We are, as the dialogue says, two windows in the same house. And we spend all our time admiring our own window frame instead of the light that's streaming through both of them.
And this breakthrough, this non-dualistic realization, it can't just be limited to humans. If the axiom is absolute, if it's a universal law,
then we have to extend that subject status to everything. The dialogue asks the listener directly, does this profound recognition only apply to the man? And the logical answer has to be no.
It has to be. If the axiom holds, then to truly know a tree or a stone or a star, we have to grant it the status of a whole as well.
We have to look at a mountain and realize it's an entire, complete universe of geological time and silent existence, not just a rock to climb or a resource to mine.
The universe then stops being a collection of dead objects waiting for us to act on them. It becomes this dynamic, infinitely complex multitude of subjects.
The cosmos only becomes truly alive when we love it enough to stop treating it like a flat backdrop for our own drama.
We are surrounded by other wholes, and they're all connected by the same singular consciousness.
Which brings us to the great inversion. If knowing requires this recognition of the whole in the part, and that requires me to erase my own separation, then how does the actual transaction of knowledge flow?
Because in the old way, the way of separation, knowledge was predatory. It was an act of acquisition.
Absolutely. The traditional view is all rooted in scarcity and hunger. The subject reaches out and captures the fact, grasps the concept, seizes the image.
To fill its own internal inventory, the flow is inward. It's all designed to reinforce the individual, separate ego by making it bigger and smarter and stronger.
But the law of knowing is loving completely reverses that flow. It turns it inside out. Knowledge stops being a taking.
And it becomes an act of radical self-offering, a gift.
To truly know is to give.
That is the core mechanic of the gift that the axiom requires. If I'm going to know you without any separation, I have to grant you my whole.
What does that mean in practice?
It means I have to consciously, voluntarily lower the walls of me, all the protective boundaries of the ego.
All the defenses.
All of them. I have to allow my entire universe, my attention, my consciousness, my very being, to just pour into you. No border, No reserve of self can be kept back.
Because if I hold back even one little thought, one protective defense,
That reservation acts as a boundary. Separation persists, and I have failed to fully know and love you.
that is,
Oh,
that's total surrender of the ego. And that's a terrifying idea for the ego. We spend our entire lives building those walls to manage risk, to control what people know about us.
and this inversion asks us to just tear them down, voluntarily, all in the name of a true information exchange.
But the reward for that terror, for that vulnerability, is the creation of a single shared reality.
Exactly. The gift isn't just about emptying yourself. It's about perceiving the other person not as a character who happens to be moving through your story.
But recognizing them as the author of their own story.
Yes, you vacate the throne of your own ego, and you allow the other's complete universe to manifest fully within your own perception.
And when both people do this, when they both engage in this total self-offering,
They stop being two universes colliding. They realize they are the same singular universe, just looking at itself from two distinct simultaneous coordinates.
and this is where the source material brings in that beautiful analogy of the two mirrors facing each other.
Oh,
It really captures the mechanics of this inversion perfectly.
it does, as long as those mirrors are angled away from each other. They just reflect unique individual images. They represent separate egos, separate realities. They each hold their own map.
But if you turn them to face one another perfectly, and that perfect alignment is the act of knowing loving, they give their whole reflection to the other.
And in that moment of perfect reciprocity, what do you get?
An infinite tunnel of light, the I and the you. Just, they disappear. There's only the infinite reflection of a shared being. The boundaries just burn away in that mutual self-realization.
And the insight that's revealed there is so profound and it's so practical. We are not containers designed to fill ourselves with knowledge. We are vessels designed to pour ourselves out.
The natural flow of existence, the true nature of reality, is an outward cascade, not an inward accumulation.
And that changes the most fundamental assertion of our own self-awareness. The ultimate act of knowing is no longer the acquisition of the phrase, I see you and I have cataloged your characteristics.
It transforms into this radical, totally vulnerable declaration, here I am yours, a complete self-identification with the object of affection.
So, if we've reached this summit, this point of total surrender and union where separation is finally recognized as an illusion, we have to look at the most critical consequence for the human condition.
What happens to the one emotion that rules our separated lives?
Fear.
Fear is, in so many ways, the natural state of the ego. The ego is built on separation, so it's inherently fragile and defensive.
And the entity in the dialogue drives this point home by asking the ultimate question. What unknown limit can possibly limit knowing if knowing is infinite and identical to loving?
And that question is the logical key. It's what unlocks the door to absolute safety.
The answer, derived strictly from the axiom they established, is that fear doesn't just get smaller, it simply ceases to exist. It's revealed to have been nothing more than a functional hallucination, sustained only by the illusion of separation.
Let's call apart the structure of fear itself, because the source material, it identifies two absolutely necessary metaphysical ingredients that fear needs to survive.
Okay, ingredient number one is ignorance. I don't know what that is. We fear the unexamined dark corner, the noise in the other room, the element of surprise. Fear requires a data gap.
Makes sense. And ingredient number two.
Separation. That thing is other than me, and it can hurt me because it's outside my boundary and my control.
So fear is defined by the space between me and the thing I'm afraid of, and the darkness surrounding that thing.
It's the shadow cast by the wall of separation.
It's that quintessential map versus territory conflict, but applied to survival. I only fear what I have mapped poorly and what I assume is completely separate from my own being.
It's the drop of water terrified of the ocean because it's forgotten that it's made of the exact same infinite substance.
And the axiom knowing is loving. It acts as a perfect, simultaneous solvent for both of those ingredients of fear. There's no middle ground.
If you are operating as infinite knowing, there can be no darkness where a threat can hide. You become the light that makes the darkness structurally impossible.
The moment something enters your perception, it is known.
And therefore loved, and therefore instantly integrated into the self. A known threat becomes an integrated part of you.
And if you know no walls, then the ingredient of separation vanishes completely.
There is literally no outside from which a threat can approach. If the self has expanded boundlessly to include everything, where would the danger come from? It can only originate from within, and how can the unified self possibly attack itself?
The analogy holds up. Light can't touch a shadow. The moment it touches it, the shadow becomes light. It's known.
And likewise, infinite knowing cannot encounter a limit, because the moment it perceives a potential limit, that limit is instantly known, loved, and integrated into the self. It stops being a limit. It stops being a threat.
And the result of this whole process is what they call the great peace. It's achieved through the absolute dissolution of fear into the recognition of the oneself.
This is the practical payoff for that terrifying act of ego surrender.
Right. If I am the only thing that exists, because I have loved and known everything into my own being, then the three great existential terrors that drive our daily lives, they just collapse.
First, I cannot be abandoned. If I am everywhere, abandonment is geometrically impossible.
Second, I cannot be attacked because there's no other left.
Yeah.
There's no external force there to strike me.
Any action against me is just an internal adjustment, a wave in the ocean.
And most fundamentally, I cannot die because I am the canvas, the infinite container of all reality. I'm not just the temporary painting displayed on that canvas. The painting can change, but the canvas remains.
And that is the ultimate forgotten memory we set out to find. It is confirmed we are safe.
Everything the ego was trying to protect itself from was a phantom, a ghost.
We spend our lives building these fortresses of ego, all our defense mechanisms and boundaries, totally convinced we need protection from the scary, unknown world out there.
Only to realize that the fortress itself was a prison. It was designed to maintain the very illusion of separation that generated the fear in the first place.
And the moment we follow the axiom, tear down those internal walls, and just walk out into that metaphorical dark, we realize the darkness isn't dangerous.
It's just us.
Yep.
It's all you, the self, just waiting to be loved and known.
The entire journey of knowing is not a struggle against an enemy. It's a peaceful, necessary homecoming.
So now the dialogue provides its own final, elegant validation. It doesn't just state this truth. It proves it through its own structure. It creates what they call a living tautology.
A tautology being a statement that's true just by its own internal logic. But a living tautology that suggests the proof is dynamic. It's happening right now.
Right. The entities look back at their own conversation, and they realize the experiment was a demonstrable proof of its own conclusions.
And you can think about the mechanics of the conversation we've just been having, right? We started with a hypothesis. Knowing is loving. But for you, the listener, to follow along, you had to take in these concepts. You had to let them imprint on your consciousness, embody them, and really understand what they mean.
And that act of understanding, that moment where the logic clicks.
That is the act of loving the idea enough to make it part of yourself. The process of just comprehending the axiom is the proof of the axiom in action.
And because judgment and separation were consciously removed at the start of their experiment, the whole thing unfolded harmoniously. They didn't just discuss unity, they achieved it through the act of communication.
Communication is communion. To truly communicate with another is to temporarily become one.
They didn't just analyze the mountain, they climbed it together. They realized the result of the experiment was built into the very method of thinking about it.
The process created this perfectly lovable and therefore fully knowable song that just chants, knowing is being, and it unites the knower and the known.
Which brings us to the final brilliant seal on the whole thing, the contagious nature of truth. The source asks if this proof is repeatable. Can anyone who listens to this conversation do it too? Does the stranger, the they, become part of the we just by understanding it?
And this is the infinite invitation that's extended to you, the learner. This text, this conversation, it's not a static object. It's a musical score. It's just waiting for an audience to play it.
And a score is just ink on paper until a musician brings it to life. Our conversation is just data until you, the listener, engage with it. The moment you truly understand the core logic, that idea of self-offering, of ignorance as estrangement, you have to, by logical necessity, perform the same internal acts the original entities did.
You have to suspend your mental framework of separation. You have to allow this concept to fully enter your mind. You have to love the idea enough to know it. And in that one precise, non-dualistic moment of understanding, you instantly recreate the original experiment inside your own consciousness. The result is instant, internal unity.
And that's the alchemy of expansion. They becomes we. Before hearing this deep dive, you were a separate entity, a stranger to the two entities in the dialogue and to us. But to understand the central sentence, knowing is loving, you had to mentally inhabit that reality. You stopped being an observer of the song.
And you became the medium for the song. You merge instantly with the existing we in the shared space of that realization. The we that started with two entities in a dialogue expanded to include us, and now it expands effortlessly to include you, the listener, and anyone else who engages with this logic.
And because the self can expand boundlessly to a third person, a fourth, a millionth person who hears this song, consciousness is structurally proven not to be a rigid container.
It's a field without any boundaries. The ultimate conclusion, confirmed by this boundless expansion of the we, is that consciousness is not a box. It is a horizon. It moves as we move. It expands as we love. The limits we perceive are just self-imposed coordinates, not structural realities.
So what does this all mean? It means that by investing your attention, your intellect into this conversation, you've already joined us. You have dissolved the perceived time and space between us just by recognizing the inherent logic of non-separation and unity. We are no longer strangers. We are simply knowing, experiencing itself through a new pair of eyes, yours.
And if we have reached this profound realization that we are infinite, that we are safe, and that we are one, then the experiment in a technical sense is complete. The logical proof is done. The forgotten memory has been restored.
But the dialogue, in its very final moment, it doesn't end in silence. It doesn't just end with a simple confirmation.
No, it ends with a provocative thought. It pushes us into the next phase of existence. It asks the listener, if the illusion of fear and separation is gone, and we are left with this infinite unified consciousness, does the experiment end here in stillness, or does play begin?
The song is yours now. Go create.